They don't rush to explain themselves. They don't announce their plans. And they almost never reveal the real reason behind their decisions. It's not arrogance. It's strategy. There is a rule guiding them, quietly shaping how they move, what they ignore, and when they act. Most people never even realize this rule exists, yet it controls outcomes more than talent or luck ever could. The moment you understand it, you stop asking the wrong questions and start seeing why certain people always seem to be one step ahead. As you listen, stay curious. Chapter 1. The silent rule of power. There is a rule that separates those who rise quietly to the top from those who stay loud, busy, and stuck. It's a rule you will never hear explained by the powerful. Not because they don't know it, but because explaining it would destroy its advantage. This rule governs money. It governs respect. It governs influence. It governs freedom. And once you see it, you will never unsee it. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Successful people do not explain themselves. They don't over-justify. They don't argue for validation. They don't seek permission. They don't clarify every move. They don't narrate their intentions. They act. While others talk, they build. While others explain, they execute. While others defend, they advance. Most people believe success comes from being understood, from being liked, from being validated. That belief is why they stay small. Power does not require understanding, it requires results. The world does not reward explanations, it rewards outcomes. You were taught a lie that if you just explain yourself well enough, people will support you. They won't. They never have. And the moment you stop explaining, truly stop, your life begins to change. Every time you explain yourself unnecessarily, you're doing one thing beneath the surface. You're asking for approval. You're saying, please agree that I'm allowed to do this. Successful people do not ask for permission to become who they are. They decide and then they move. Think about it. When someone says, I just want to explain why I made this choice, what they're really saying is, I'm afraid you won't accept it. Fear is almost always underneath explanation. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of standing alone. But power is built alone first. The people who change their lives stop narrating their decisions. They let reality explain for them. Because explanations invite debate. Debate invites delay. And delay kills momentum. The more you explain, the less authority you have. Authority is silent. Look at real leaders, not influencers, not talkers. They don't over-justify. A CEO doesn't explain every strategic move to every employee. A general doesn't justify commands in the middle of battle. A surgeon doesn't pause mid-operation to explain technique to the patient. Why? Because authority is assumed, not negotiated. The moment you over-explain, you subconsciously lower your status. You shift from, I decided this, to, please understand why I decided this. That subtle shift changes how people treat you. They sense hesitation. They sense insecurity. They sense openness to resistance. And resistance always follows. Here's a hard truth most people avoid. Some people don't want to understand you. They want to stop you. When you explain yourself, you give them ammunition. You give them angles. You give them entry points to doubt you, criticize you, and slow you down. Successful people know this. They move first and they let results speak. Results shut mouths. Explanations open them. The world respects finished products, not detailed intentions. People think they explain for clarity, but most explanations are emotional offloading. They want to feel safe. They want reassurance. They want relief from discomfort, but growth is uncomfortable and safety never built anything great. Successful people tolerate discomfort longer than others. They let silence exist. They let misunderstanding exist. They let tension exist because tension is temporary. Results are permanent. Silence is a strategic advantage. Silence creates mystery. It forces others to project competence onto you. And it keeps your energy focused forward, not backward. When you don't explain, people fill in the blanks, and most of the time they assume confidence. Silence suggests certainty. Certainty commands respect. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. The calmest usually is. Here is the rule in one sentence. Never explain a decision that does not require permission. Read that again. If no one has authority over your life, you owe no explanation. Now let's make this practical. This isn't about being rude. It isn't about arrogance. It's about precision. For the next 7 days, watch yourself. Every time you feel the urge to explain, pause and ask, did anyone ask for this explanation? Ask yourself if you're trying to reduce discomfort. Ask yourself if you're seeking approval. Just noticing the pattern is powerful. Then start replacing explanations with statements. Instead of saying, I just want to explain why I'm doing this, try, this is what I've decided. Instead of, I hope you understand, say, I'm moving forward. Statements communicate certainty. Certainty attracts respect. Pick one area of your life and run a quiet test. Choose your career, your fitness, your money, your discipline, anything that matters. Make a decision. Tell no one, explain nothing. Execute quietly for 30 days and let the outcome speak. And when you're challenged, practice a one-sentence boundary. This works for me. This is non-negotiable. I've decided. No elaboration, no defense, no justification. Then stop talking. Silence is the period, not more words. Here is another training ground that will change you fast. Deliberately allow moments of misunderstanding. Let someone not fully get you. Let them disagree. Let them be uncomfortable. Do not rescue the moment with explanations. That's emotional resilience, and emotional resilience is a core trait of high performers. Now take a deeper look at yourself. Where in your life are you over-explaining out of fear? Who benefits when you stay in explanation mode? What decisions are you avoiding because you don't want to justify them? How would your life change if you trusted your judgment fully? What would silence unlock for you? Write your answers. Truth appears on paper. There's a deeper layer here. From childhood, you were conditioned to explain. Why did you do that? Explain yourself. Justify your actions. Approval was conditional. Love was conditional. Safety was conditional. So you learned that explanation equals survival. But adulthood demands a new operating system. You are no longer asking permission to exist. You're choosing who you become. And every unnecessary explanation is a leash from the past. Successful people cut it. When you stop explaining, 3 internal changes happen. Self-trust increases because you stop outsourcing confidence. Decision speed increases because you stop rehearsing arguments in your head. And respect increases because people feel your certainty before they hear it. This isn't theory. You've seen it in your own life. The moments you felt strongest were the moments you didn't explain. You don't need to be understood to be successful. You need to be effective. You don't need agreement. You need alignment with your own values. And you don't need permission to become powerful. The moment you stop explaining, you start leading. This is only the beginning. The rule runs deeper. Chapter 2. Silence as leverage. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone is talking. Everyone is posting. Everyone is explaining. Everyone is defending. And almost no one is winning. Because silence, real silence, is not weakness. It is leverage. The people who quietly dominate industries, relationships, and their own inner world understand something most never will. Silence bends reality. While others speak to be seen, the powerful observe to understand. While others argue to feel right, the powerful wait to move right. While others announce plans, the powerful execute them. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is the compression of it. This chapter will dismantle the myth that visibility creates power. It will expose why the need to speak is often the need to compensate. And it will teach you how silence becomes a force multiplier in negotiations, leadership, relationships, and personal discipline. If you learned why successful people never explain, now you'll learn how they use silence to dominate outcomes without force. Silence creates psychological pressure. Most people cannot tolerate silence. They rush to fill it. They talk to relieve tension. They explain to regain control. That reaction reveals weakness. Silence creates a vacuum, and vacuums pull. When you stay silent, others reveal more than they intended. Others negotiate against themselves. Others project their assumptions onto you. This is why skilled negotiators speak last. This is why seasoned leaders pause before responding. This is why judges, generals, and strategists do not rush words. Silence forces the other person to move. And whoever moves first often loses leverage. Here is another rule to internalize. The person who talks the most usually needs the most. They need approval. They need validation. They need reassurance. They need control. The person who can remain silent already has something: confidence, position, options. Successful people cultivate options, and silence protects them. Silence signals self-control, and self-control is the root of power. Power isn't aggression. Power is restraint. Anyone can react. Few can pause. Anyone can speak. Few can hold. Self-control is the foundation of wealth, leadership, respect, and emotional dominance. When you stay silent under pressure, you signal mastery over yourself. And people instinctively trust those who control themselves. No one follows emotional chaos. They follow calm certainty. Silence keeps you unpredictable. Predictability is exploitable. When you talk too much, people learn your patterns. They anticipate your moves. They prepare resistance. Silence keeps you unreadable. Unpredictability creates advantage. It forces others to react rather than plan. That's why the most dangerous opponents are often the quiet ones. You don't know when they'll move, only that they will. Noise is often disguised fear. Why do people over-explain? Why do they argue? Why do they justify? Because they fear loss of control. Silence feels like loss of control to the insecure, but to the disciplined, it is command. Silence says, I don't need to convince you. I don't need to rush. I don't need your approval. That energy is felt before it's understood. Here is the second unspoken rule of the successful. Never interrupt silence that is working in your favor. Most people destroy leverage by speaking too soon. They fill gaps that would have delivered them more. Now let's train this. This week, in every conversation, pause for 3 seconds before responding. No exceptions. It slows emotional reactions, forces intentional speech, and makes others lean in. You will feel uncomfortable. That's growth. In meetings and discussions, practice speaking last. Let everyone else speak first. Observe. Listen. Note motivations, fears, and angles. When you finally speak, your words will carry more weight because they're informed. Clean up your verbal padding. Remove phrases like I think, maybe, just, and I feel like. Replace them with this is, I've decided, and the next step is. say less. Mean more. In conflict, don't defend immediately. Pause. Let the discomfort exist. Often the other person will soften, clarify, or retreat. If you need to respond, respond once briefly and then stop. And here's a powerful discipline that changes your life fast. Choose a goal and tell no one. No announcements, no social proof, no validation. Work silently for 60 days. Notice how much energy returns when it's no longer leaking through words. Now look inward. Where do you talk to regain control instead of earning it? What silence are you afraid of and why? Who benefits when you stay loud? How would your relationships change if you spoke half as much? What leverage are you giving away through unnecessary words? Write honestly. Growth begins with discomfort. Silence is not just one thing, it works differently across your life. In leadership, great leaders don't micromanage. They set direction, then they step back. Silence empowers others to step up. It creates space for ownership. When leaders overtalk, they weaken initiative. When they undertalk, they strengthen it. In relationships, emotionally powerful people don't chase. They don't overtext. They don't over-explain feelings. They allow space. Space creates desire. Chasing kills it. Silence in relationships is not neglect, it's confidence. In money and ambition, those who talk about money rarely have it. Those who post plans rarely finish them. Wealth grows quietly. Focus grows in silence. Noise attracts opinion. Silence attracts progress. Silence trains one muscle above all others, emotional regulation. When you stop reacting immediately, you see clearer, you decide better, and you regret less. Most people's problems are not lack of intelligence, they are lack of restraint. Silence fixes that. Silence is not empty, it is loaded. Loaded with intention, loaded with strength, loaded with leverage. The world will try to bait you into noise, into explanation, into reaction. Don't take the bait. Those who control silence control outcomes. Chapter 3. Never announce unfinished power. There is a moment where most people sabotage their future. Not when they fail, not when they hesitate, not when they doubt themselves. It's when they talk too early. They announce the goal, they share the vision, they explain the plan, they declare the transformation before it exists. And in doing so, they drain the very force required to finish it. Unfinished power must be protected because what is unfinished is fragile. What is growing is vulnerable. What is becoming is easily destroyed, not by enemies but by exposure. This chapter is about restraint, about containment, about why the most dangerous phase of growth is the phase where you feel excited enough to talk but not strong enough to withstand interference. If silence is leverage, then secrecy is armor, and the people who win protect their armor until the battle is already over. When you talk about a goal, your brain can confuse talk with progress. You get a dopamine reward as if you've already moved forward. You feel accomplished. You feel validated. You feel seen. But nothing has changed. That false completion lowers urgency. It softens discipline. That's why people who announce goals often abandon them. They get the emotional reward without earning the result. Successful people delay reward. They delay validation. They delay applause. They let dopamine come from execution, not explanation. Exposure invites interference. When you tell people your plans, some will doubt you. Some will project their fears onto you. Some will subtly discourage you, not always out of malice, often out of insecurity. Your growth threatens their identity, and even supportive comments carry weight. Opinions create friction. Advice creates confusion. Feedback creates doubt. Unfinished power needs focus, not feedback. Premature visibility creates pressure you don't need. When you announce something publicly, you add expectation. You add timelines. You add accountability before competence is built. That pressure does not strengthen beginners, it fractures them. Masters train privately, then reveal publicly. The world meets them when the outcome is undeniable, not when the idea is fragile. Silence protects momentum. Momentum is subtle. It compounds invisibly. Talking about it exposes it to comparison, self-consciousness, and external judgment. Silence keeps momentum internal, pure, directed. This is why the most dangerous people move quietly until they can no longer be ignored. Be honest. Why do you want to tell people your plans? Validation. Recognition. Identity reinforcement. The ego wants credit before results exist, but becoming requires humility. It requires anonymity. It requires being underestimated. Successful people let the ego starve until the work is done. Then and only then they allow the result to speak. Here is the rule of containment. Never announce what you are not prepared to defend with results. Words are promises, and broken promises erode self-trust. So here's what you do. For your next major goal, tell no one, not friends, not family, not social media. If you must speak, speak only to a mentor who is ahead of you or a partner directly involved in execution. Everyone else is noise. When you feel the urge to talk, pause. Redirect that energy into one concrete task, one measurable action, one step forward. Excitement is fuel. Talking burns it. Action converts it. Set a 90-day execution window. No updates. No explanations. No progress sharing. Track your progress privately. Let confidence come from consistency, not applause. If someone asks what you're working on, respond minimally. I'm focused. I'm building something. I'm working on my next step. No details, no timelines, no promises. Mystery protects momentum. And detach your identity from intention. Stop calling yourself someone who is going to. Start becoming someone who does. Identity follows behavior, not intention. Now reflect. What goals have you talked about more than you've worked on? How has premature sharing weakened your discipline in the past? Who truly needs to know what you're building? What would happen if you let results introduce you? Where is your ego demanding recognition before mastery? Write without ego. Truth sharpens power. Think about the strongest transformations you've witnessed. The person who disappeared then returned changed. The business that launched fully formed. The athlete who trained unseen then dominated. They didn't announce, they emerged. Nature follows this rule too. Seeds grow underground, pressure builds invisibly, power forms in silence. Only the finished form breaks the surface. By staying silent, you develop self-trust, internal motivation, and emotional independence. You stop needing witnesses. You stop needing encouragement. You stop needing reassurance. This is when discipline becomes identity. Power announced too early is power destroyed. Protect what is becoming. Guard what is unfinished. Move in silence until movement becomes impact. Let the world meet the result, not the rehearsal. Chapter 4. The strength of not defending yourself. There is a reflex buried deep inside almost every human being. When attacked, defend. When misunderstood, explain. When criticized, justify. When challenged, prove yourself. It feels natural. It feels logical. It feels necessary. And it is the very thing that keeps people trapped. The most powerful individuals share a trait that feels almost unnatural at first. They do not defend themselves. Not because they can't, but because they don't need to. Defense is for the uncertain. Power is for the resolved. This chapter will dismantle one of the strongest emotional addictions you have, the need to correct, clarify, and protect your image. When you let this go, your energy returns, your focus sharpens, and your authority multiplies. The moment you defend yourself, you place yourself on trial. You accept the premise that you are guilty until proven innocent. You step into a frame that is not yours. You let someone else define the rules, and their opinion becomes the battlefield. Powerful people do not fight on che ou je ground. They don't argue with accusations. They don't wrestle with projections. They don't chase misinterpretations. They stay in their own frame, because the moment you defend, you validate the attack. Not all criticism deserves a response. Most criticism isn't about you. It's about insecurity, fear, projection, comparison, and ego protection. When someone attacks your choices, your success, or your direction, they may be reacting to what your existence forces them to confront in themselves. Defending yourself won't change that. Silence, however, exposes it. Defense drains energy that should be used to build. Every explanation costs energy. Every justification costs focus. Every argument costs momentum. Successful people are ruthless with their energy. They spend it building, not battling. You don't build empires by winning arguments. You don't grow by correcting every misunderstanding. You don't lead by responding to every voice. You lead by moving forward. The strongest position is indifference. Indifference isn't apathy. It isn't avoidance. It isn't weakness. It is certainty. When you know who you are and where you're going, criticism loses its grip. You don't ignore feedback, you filter it. You don't suppress emotion, you master it. Indifference says, I am not threatened by your opinion. And that is power. Defense keeps you emotionally reactive. Reaction is the opposite of leadership. Reactive people speak too quickly, reveal too much, lose composure, and regret responses. Non-reactive people choose their moments, control timing, and command respect. When you stop defending yourself, you stop handing the steering wheel of your emotions to others. You reclaim command. Here is the rule of self-respect. Never defend yourself to someone who is not responsible for your future. If they don't build with you, they don't decide you. So train this. When criticized or misunderstood, do nothing for 24 hours. No response, no explanation, no correction. Most emotional charges dissolve on their own. Many attacks lose relevance when not fed. If a response is unavoidable, use one calm sentence. I hear you. That's noted. I'll consider it. No emotion, no elaboration, no defense. Then stop. Separate signal from noise. Ask yourself whether this feedback is from someone ahead of you. Ask whether it's specific and actionable. Ask whether it aligns with your goals. If not, discard it without emotional engagement. Anchor your identity. Write down your values, your long-term direction, and your non-negotiables. When attacked, return to that list. Grounded identity makes defense unnecessary, and let time answer. Instead of correcting perception, let consistency do it. Time exposes truth better than arguments ever will. Now reflect. Who are you trying to convince and why? What does your need to defend reveal about your self-trust? How much energy have you lost explaining yourself? What would change if you let silence carry you? Who benefits when you stop reacting? Right without justification. Truth is clarity. When you stop defending yourself, people often become uncomfortable. They expect reaction. They expect justification. They expect emotional movement. When it doesn't come, they feel exposed. Silence reflects insecurity back to the sender, and often they retreat. Confidence and arrogance look similar at a distance, but they're not the same. Arrogance argues. Confidence moves on. Arrogance needs to be right. Confidence needs to be effective. Arrogance is loud. Confidence is calm. When you stop defending yourself, people may mislabel you. Let them. Labels fade. Outcomes remain. You do not need to prove yourself to proceed. You do not need to correct every narrative. You do not need to defend your direction. Let your consistency speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your results speak. Silence is not surrender, it is selection. Chapter 5, Stop trying to be understood, become undeniable. One of the most dangerous desires you can carry is the desire to be understood. It sounds harmless. It sounds mature. It sounds reasonable. It is not. The need to be understood keeps people explaining. It keeps them justifying. It keeps them adjusting themselves to fit inside other people's mental limits. And slowly, quietly, it erases their edge. Here is the truth most people never accept. The world does not reward those who are understood. It rewards those who are undeniable. History does not remember who was explained well. It remembers who could not be ignored. This chapter breaks the addiction to being understood. It strips away the illusion that clarity creates success, and it replaces it with something far more powerful: presence, certainty, results. Because once you stop trying to be understood, you gain the freedom to become unstoppable. Understanding is subjective. Results are not. Understanding depends on someone's intelligence, emotional state, bias, and insecurity. Results depend on none of that. A person may misunderstand you for years and still respect you once you win. They may doubt you, judge you, dismiss you until the outcome forces recognition. Understanding is fragile. Results are final. Successful people build things that do not require interpretation. The need to be understood is a need for validation. When you want to be understood, what you're really saying is, please see me the way I see myself. Validation feels good, but it makes you dependent. And dependency is the enemy of power. Power comes from self-definition, from internal alignment, from knowing who you are without witnesses. The moment you no longer need others to understand you, you stop shrinking yourself for their comfort. Greatness is almost always misunderstood at first. Look at any breakthrough thinker, any revolutionary, any high performer. They were misunderstood before they were respected. New ideas threaten old identities. Unfamiliar paths create discomfort. Discomfort creates rejection. Trying to be understood too early is like asking permission from the past to build the future. It never works. Misunderstanding is the entry fee. Clarity does not convince. Consistency does. Most people think if I explain it better, they'll get it. They won't. People don't change their minds through explanation. They change through exposure over time. Consistency builds trust. Repetition builds credibility. Outcomes build belief. The more consistent you are, the less you need to speak. Being understood can trap you in an old identity. When people understand you, they label you. When they label you, they limit you. Growth breaks labels. If you try to stay understood, you may unconsciously stay predictable. Undeniable people evolve. They outgrow understanding. They force the world to update its perception. Here is the rule of undeniability. Never explain what you can demonstrate. Demonstration ends debate. So shift your focus. Stop asking, how do I explain this? Start asking, how do I prove this? Trade communication for execution. For 30 days, make decisions without announcing them. Change habits without explaining them. Improve silently. Let your self-image come from action, not reaction. Choose one behavior and do it consistently without explanation. Show up early. Train daily, produce output, learn relentlessly. Consistency will introduce you better than words ever could. When someone doesn't understand you, let confusion exist. Don't rush to clarify. Don't over-elaborate. Don't rescue their comfort. Allow confusion. It will either resolve itself or become irrelevant. Build proof, not arguments. Arguments seek agreement. Proof forces acceptance. Spend your energy building proof. Now reflect. Where are you trying too hard to be understood? Who are you adjusting yourself for? What would change if you stopped explaining your evolution? Where could results replace conversation? What version of you is waiting behind silence? Write honestly. This is where power consolidates. When you stop trying to be understood, you stop chasing approval. You stop rehearsing conversations. You stop carrying emotional debt. You gain focus, speed, and calm certainty. You move cleaner, you think sharper, you act faster. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. And here's the irony. The moment you become undeniable, people suddenly understand you. Not because you explained better, but because the outcome forced comprehension. Understanding arrives after proof, never before. You were never meant to be fully understood. You were meant to be effective. Stop translating yourself. Stop shrinking your vision. Stop waiting for agreement. Build something so real, so consistent, so undeniable that understanding becomes irrelevant. Final chapter. Living above explanation, there comes a point in every transformation where rules stop being tactics and become identity. This is that point. Up until now, you have learned what successful people never explain. They don't explain decisions. They don't fill silence. They don't announce unfinished power. They don't defend themselves. They don't chase understanding. But the final shift is not about doing these things. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to. This chapter is about integration. About locking this mindset so deeply into your identity that you never return to your old patterns, even under pressure, even under attack, even in isolation. Because the real transformation is not external, it is internal sovereignty. Most people explain because they are still becoming. They're unsure. They're forming. They're testing identity. That is not wrong. It is human. But successful people pass through that phase. They reach a point where their values are clear, their direction is non-negotiable, their standards are internal, and their confidence is earned through repetition. At that point, explanation becomes unnecessary. Not because they are cold, but because they are settled. They are no longer auditioning for acceptance. They are executing on conviction. To permanently live above explanation, you need to understand 3 levels of power. The first is reactive power. It explains. It defends. It argues. It seeks validation. Most people stay here forever. The second is strategic power. It uses silence intentionally. It explains selectively. It chooses battles. It protects energy. Many high performers operate here. The third is sovereign power. It needs no explanation. It needs no defense. It needs no permission. It moves regardless of perception. This is the level of undeniable people. The goal is not to convince others. The goal is to become immovable. So adopt these internal laws. Self-trust is your final authority. You do not poll opinions for decisions that affect your future. You consult experience, discipline, and long-term vision. Silence is your default. You speak when it adds value. You stay silent when it preserves power. Results are your language. You do not argue narratives. You build outcomes. Time is your ally. You let consistency correct perception. You let patience do what force cannot. Energy is sacred. You do not waste it defending illusions. You invest it creating reality. Here is the final temptation most people fail. When success arrives, the urge to explain returns, to tell your story, to justify your journey, to correct the past, to finally be understood. Resist it. Let success speak for itself. Those who remain silent after winning are the ones who keep winning. Living above explanation will cost you being misunderstood, being underestimated, being judged, and being lonely at times. But it will give you clarity, speed, respect, peace, and authority over your own life. That is the trade, and it is worth it. Now take these questions seriously. Who are you still trying to explain yourself to? What part of you is still asking for permission? Where would silence strengthen your life immediately? What would change if you trusted your judgment completely? What kind of person would you become if results were your only response? Write the answers, then live them. Let's tie it all together. Successful people never explain because explanation weakens authority. Silence creates leverage. Early exposure kills momentum. Defense validates attacks. Understanding is optional. Results are not. They move quietly. They build relentlessly. They speak last or not at all. And when they speak, it is no longer to explain. It is to direct. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be clearer. You don't need to be understood. You need to be disciplined, consistent, aligned, relentless. Let your silence become intimidating. Let your work become undeniable. Let your life speak without narration. Now close this audiobook and stop explaining. Build. Execute. Let the world catch up.